Shana Tova to everyone. I want to take a moment and talk about a boy named Max Steinberg. Max grew up here in the San Fernando Valley. He was one of our boys. He was a valley boy. This summer, Max died in Gaza, fighting terrorists as a decorated sharpshooter in the Israeli Defense Forces. His father, Stuart, said that one night over the phone, Max told him, "I'm not here by requirement. I'm here by volunteering. I have a purpose." Max found a purpose. You see, Max grew up a challenged kid, and like many kids and many adults, he was bewildered by life. He bided his time in a cloak of apathy and distraction. And then in the summer of 2012, Max went on birthright to Israel. There, for the first time, he saw a land and a people that moved to the rhythm of his own heart. And it was up on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, Israel's national cemetery, that Max stood in front of the grave of another young man, Michael Levine, who made the choice to do something meaningful with his own life. It was Michael's story as an alumnus of Camp Ramah, a lover of poetry and song, a lover of people. It was Michael's story of being a young man who moved across the world to make something of his life that so inspired Max. And so standing over Michael's grave on Mount Herzl over Yerushalayim, Max decided to make Aliyah himself. It was there in Israel where Max found his purpose. It was there in Israel where Max chose to step out of life, a life of apathy, and into a life of meaning. It was there in Israel where Max chose to live life to its fullest, not by taking all that he could, but by giving all that he could. It was there in Israel where Max chose life until death chose him. It was his choice to do something memorable, to live a great life and to have a great impact. It was his choice to put in the hard work to move across the world and to learn Hebrew. It was his choice to live out Jewish dreams in real time. It was his choice to make his life matter. So he chose to make his life matter. See, to become great in life, it doesn't require great talent or luck. It doesn't require riches or fame. It only requires great choices. There are no great people in this world, only people who make great choices. When Rosa Parks was in jail, for example, her pastor, Martin Luther King, could have called her on the phone and said, "Rosa, don't rock the boat for the rest of us." He could have said, "Quiet down, Rosa." He could have said, "Sit tight, the ladies are going to bake you a lemon cake." And instead, he gathered the black community of Montgomery, Alabama into a small rural church. And he took the pulpit and he made a choice. He said, "There comes a time when people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression." And he made the bold choice to raise his voice against the winds of racism and injustice. And with that, he leapt into a life of meaning. You don't have to be Max, and you don't have to be Michael, and you don't have to be Martin Luther King to choose a life that matters. You can choose a blessed life, a great life, without riches or fame. You don't have to move across the world or lead a march on Washington, D.C. to have a blessed life. You can choose to be a good father, a good mother. You can choose to be a good business person or a community volunteer. You can choose to have empathy. You can choose to live righteously, because ultimately, in the end, your life is your choice. So go ahead and ask yourself the question today, where do you want to go? Or put differently, what do you want to be? What are you going to do with your life starting Hayom, today? Ask yourself, do I want to make my life matter? Do I want to live a life of true greatness? Do I want my life to have impact? Do I want to live a blessed life today, Hayom. The Torah teaches that these are the foundational choices that are set before us every day. In the Torah, Moses gathers the people together in a valley between two mountains. He splits the leadership in half. Half go up one mountain and the other half go up the other. And on one mountain, the leaders sing out the blessings of life. And atop the other, the leaders sing out the curses. And the people gathered in the valley are given ultimately life's greatest choice. Here is a pathway, he says, that leads to life. And here is a pathway that leads to death. The choice is yours. Here is a pathway that leads to blessing and a pathway that leads to curses. The choice is yours. And when we stand in the valley between blessings and curses, the Torah tells us, Uvacharta v'chayim, to choose life. The Torah tells us to choose life because how we live is our choice. We can choose life or we can choose death. And the Torah teaches us, Uvacharta v'chayim, choose life. But don't just choose any life. Choose a life with meaning. Choose a life with holiness and compassion. Choose a life of impact, of godliness. Choose a life of blessing. Now, generally speaking, many people don't choose a blessed life. They take the limited time we have on earth and waste their lives, wasting it on trivia, wasting it on consumerism, wasting it on things that won't really matter in 5 years or 10 years or 100 years. I'm reminded of a story of Rabbi Akiva. According to the legend, Akiva was traveling in the forest by the light of the moon. He was passed by a man whose skin was charred black as coal. The man carried on his back a heavy load of wood as he was moving through the forest at the speed of a workhorse. Akiva stopped him and inquired and said, "My son, why do you work so hard? If you are a slave with a harsh master, let me free you. If it's because you're so poor, let me take care of you. Tell me, why do you work so hard?" In a deep voice, the man rumbled, "I'm not a slave, nor am I a pauper," he said. "I was a tax collector, and I was harsh and oppressed the poor. I cared only for myself and my riches. You see," he said, "I am a dead man. I'm a ghost. And because of my sins, I'm forced to build my funeral pyre every night, upon which I lie in the morning, only to begin again the task of building." This is what the Torah means, I think, when it says there's a pathway to curses. And this is what the Torah means when it says that death is as much a choice as life. Because there is death, and then there is death in life. Death in life happens when we focus too much on crafting our lives around our everyday activity, and we miss out on the sweet moments of learning and discovery. We choose death in life when we bury our heads in drugs and alcohol and other addictions. We choose death in life when we think greatness is about how much money we make. We choose death in life when we think greatness is about how big our house is. We choose death in life when we think greatness is living to work instead of working to live. We choose death in life when we think greatness is in the kind of car we drive, in the obsession with both work and leisure, in fleeing from the tragedies of the world, and by taking refuge in our own spiritual myopia. There are thousands of graves on the hills of Los Angeles. I know because I spend a lot of time in cemeteries. And as I walk along the miles and miles of headstones, there is not one epitaph that says, "Here lies so-and-so, he had the biggest house." Or there he threw the greatest parties, or had the fanciest cars. There is not one headstone, not one that reads, "Here lies so-and-so, she had the most money or had the coolest job." Not a single one. But on the mountains of Jerusalem, lying in a grave just 100 feet from Michael Levine, is our boy Max Steinberg. And on the day of his funeral, 30,000 people showed up to mourn with his family. And they carried signs that said, and I'm translating from the Hebrew, Max Steinberg, lone soldier, patriot, Jew, who gave his life so we could live, who gave his life to Am Yisrael. We love you. Don't waste your life. Don't become that dead man who lumbers back and forth every day only to dig his own grave. Don't become the ghost of yourself with nothing but vapor to show for your efforts. There's not only so many sunrises and sunsets in your life, and only so many turns of the season, and only so many years with a full house and a full belly. Don't waste them. Now, some of us who grew up Jewish might not feel that Judaism as we know it is really that meaningful or impactful to living a great life. Some of you have come to services today because you just feel like you need to be here. Or maybe you've come to services today because it's the only way your bubby will give you a piece of apple cake. I get it. Or maybe you're here because you've always been here. I get that too. Or maybe because you're here because your parents told you to come, or because you feel a sense of obligation, even if you're not sure why. I get it. But it's time for that to change. There comes a time when we must hold up the mirror to ourselves and realize that we live only on the strength of our own choices. We've seen the numbers. Assimilation is up, birth rates are down, affiliation is down, intermarriage is up, philanthropy and charity are down. All indicators make us feel like we're failing, that we are failures. And in many ways we are, because in an age where I can choose my coffee, I can choose what TV shows to watch, I can choose who my friends are online, why wouldn't I see Judaism and Jewish life as a choice as well? Today in our world where our choices matter so much, we are all Jews by choice. Being here is a choice. Associating with other Jews is a choice. Seeing life through a Jewish lens is a choice, and it's a wonderful choice, a meaningful choice, a blessed choice. And choosing Judaism for your life is an act of inspired will that will give you the foundation for living a life of blessing, a life of greatness, a life of impact. It's not meaningless or a waste of time. It's quite the opposite. It gives your life meaning. It gives your life purpose. It gives you the foundation for making your life matter. And so today I'm going to tell you about 4 foundational choices that Judaism helps you to make your life as meaningful as possible. The first is choosing to see the holiness in yourself and the greatness that you can become. The second is choosing to give yourself to a higher purpose. The third is choosing to join a community of people who share your common vision. And the fourth is choosing to take responsibility for the world. The first choice, choosing to see the possibility of holiness in your life. As I said before, nobody is born great. There are no great people. And sometimes you hear pop psychologists saying that you're born great. You're not born great. You're born a baby who sleeps and eats and poops all the time. The book of Leviticus says, on the other hand, Kedoshim tihiyu, become holy, for I, God, am holy. It's not that we're holy already. It's not that we're holy when we're born. We have the potential of becoming holy. And becoming great or holy is your choice. And the first step to becoming holy is recognizing that with all of our failings, all of our imperfections, with all the terrible things that we tell ourselves about ourselves, there lives deep down a glowing spark of godliness. Choose to see that despite all your self-perceived fallibility, there is still a divine ember that glows inside of you. And when you see this, you can choose to stoke those embers with our time and energy, and it means growing the fire of godliness within yourself. It means sharing the light with other people. It means saying that this moment is important. It means choosing to see ourselves with utter potential. It means making the choice of life to live for greatness over greed, godliness over graft, goodness over gluttony. And Judaism helps you to make the choice to see the greatness that you can become. The second choice, Judaism teaches us to choose to live for something bigger than ourselves. And I know it's not easy to, especially for me. We all live in our own heads. My wife, Sarah, tells me this all the time. Sometimes she even says she has to shout at me to get my attention, to get over the din of thoughts playing out in my own head. And she's right. There is, and I kid you not, a 24/7-hour news channel happening inside my head with wall-to-wall coverage of my life. And it's not that entertaining. But we all need something bigger than ourselves to pull us out of our own heads. And for parents, many of us choose to live for our children. They give us purpose, and we'll do anything for them. But what if you don't have kids? Or what if your kids have left the house? Or what happens when they're teenagers and the only thing they want from you, well, they want you to drive them to the mall, and then they want you to leave them alone. So living for your kids is wonderful, but life is bigger than any one person or one family. And choosing a blessed life means choosing a pathway of meaning and connection that draws us into the epic spiritual drama that is bursting all around us. And Judaism helps you to find your purpose in life. The third choice is choosing a life of community where others share your vision. The Mishnah teaches that when two or more people share in a life of intention, God's presence dwells with them. And what that means is that when two or more people find community with each other, when we are willing to be vulnerable to each other, to take risks with each other, to see each other in our common horizon, our lives together can be mutually reinforcing. And at VBS, we never say you have to affiliate here, but we do say that you should join a community somewhere. Our best lives are lived in community. Meaning is found greatest in community. God dwells in community. I see God in the faces of our children who light up when they learn. I see God in the faces of our older members who take joy in the music and culture of our people. I see God in our young couples at their Ufruf or Shabbat Chatan. I see God in our book groups, in our social groups, and in our minyanim. God is seen in the most special of moments, and when two or more people share a life, the Mishnah teaches God dwells with them. And on the high holidays, we have a special phrase, Berov Am Hadrat HaMelech. It is in our gathering together, the multitudes of us together, that we bring beauty to our lives and give honor to God. So to live a life that has meaning, you need a partner or two or three or 2,000 or 3,000, but you have to make the choice to join the dance. You have to make the choice to join the effort. Choosing a life in community means making the choice that I love your kids as much as I love my own. Choosing a life in community means I support you when you need it, and I can expect you to support me when I need it. Choosing life in community means spending time and spending money to make the greatest life happen for each other. And Judaism helps you to make the choice to join a community and live life together. And the fourth choice is to choose a life of responsibility for the world. The greatest of lives, the ones with the greatest impact and holiness and blessing, are ones that extend the notion of who we are to encompass all who live. And that's why we're here today. The high holidays are a time when we can take a break from the outside world to come here to reflect and grow as people. But we have to jump back in. We have to go down the mountain. We have to leave the sanctuary. And many of us, myself included, thinking only of the way the world is, and we lament the failings of our humanity, all the while quietly sipping on our lattes. We watch the world that is burning with fever, succumbing to genocide, and tearing itself apart while pretending that the space between our sofa and the TV gives us enough emotional distance to say that's not my problem, or to say that's the government's job, or to say I don't have the power to change this, so what's the use? In Los Angeles, right here, there are still too many homeless, too many hungry, too many undereducated, and too many underprivileged. At VBS, our homelessness task force has already this year fed thousands of people. We've clothed hundreds more. But it's not enough. If we want to make a life of impact, we must not only serve the outcomes of the injustices we see in the world, we must tackle its root causes. And rationalizing our unwillingness to help another person, especially a stranger, allows us to watch our world falter before our eyes. And that's not Jewish. In fact, it's the exact opposite of what it means to be Jewish. Judaism teaches that our lives will carry the most meaning when we choose a life of responsibility for the world. And so the world is flatter and more open than ever before. To be Jewish today is a choice. We are all Jews by choice. And Judaism helps us to make these 4 foundational choices in order to have a life of greatness and impact. We must, 1, choose a life of potential godliness and greatness. We must choose a life of a higher purpose. We must choose to join in community. And we must choose a life of responsibility. At VBS, you can make these choices every day in every way. You can choose to join a global community that lives right here in Encino, a community of learners and activists, a community who shares the purpose of living the most meaningful life possible. So choose to worship with us, to see the world from a godly perspective. Choose to act with us to feed the hungry or clothe the naked, find homes for the homeless or jobs for the jobless. Choose to learn with us the deepest wisdom of the ancients. Choose to be Jewish most of all, because it's the choice you can make to change your life. Because every day, when I'm in this building, I see life changes. I see people's lives transformed for the better, for blessing and for meaning. And so over the next 4 months, you can choose to join me and Rabbi Feinstein as we explore these foundational choices together. The 2 of us are going to launch a learning series called Choosing a Blessed Life. Come learn with us on Saturday mornings to learn how Judaism has for millennia shaped how we see the world and where these choices come from and how they shape our lives every day so they can help us to choose to live the most blessed and meaningful life possible. At the end of his life, after decades of leadership, Moses was asked, what's the bottom line? And after seeing his people's freedom and march across the desert, after seeing their failings and their success, Moses taught us, Uvacharta b'chaim, to choose life. At which point he turned and climbed the hill overlooking the promised land. And like Max and like Michael, he laid down on that hill to breathe his last. And so choose a life of meaning. Choose to be like Max. Choose to be like Michael. Choose to be like Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks, or choose to be like Moses and come be with us so we can choose to live a blessed life together. Shana Tova.